3:47 a.m. Southern Caribbean. The night sea churned 45 miles southeast of Bonaire. On the radar screen of the USS Thomas Hudner, an unusual faint blip appeared: a go-fast boat speeding from the waters off Guajira, Colombia. Hundreds of pounds, possibly up to a ton of cocaine, were en route to a secret rendezvous somewhere on the path towards the Gulf of Mexico. Just cross this vast Caribbean Sea and they would be closer to the shores of the United States. But today was their unlucky day. There was no escape. In less than 10 minutes, the elite U.S. Navy forces would deliver a decisive blow, and the multi-million-dollar Cartel vessel would vanish amidst the choppy waves. 8 days prior, an ordinary container was in the port of Buenaventura, Colombia. Outside, legitimate papers stating refined sugar. Inside, hundreds of pounds of cocaine pressed into blocks hidden within the container's false walls, surrounded by silica gel packets to fool sniffer dogs. When the container was sealed, security cameras detected no abnormalities. The cargo ship, 722 feet long with a dark-colored hull, departed the port and followed the main commercial route northbound. After anchoring at Moyne Port, Costa Rica, the rip-on, rip-off tactic unfolded. Bribed customs officials, the container opened with a master key. The white powder was swapped into another fruit container, then resealed. The mothership's AIS positioning system continued to transmit regularly, looking no different from hundreds of other commercial container voyages passing through the region. Everything went smoothly. But upon entering the Southern Caribbean, where every wave carried traces of the U.S. Navy, no matter how carefully they acted, if the Navy chose, it would take only minutes to wipe them out. 03:15 a.m. The vessel sped across the ocean, unaware that the ocean's watchful eye had locked onto it. A P-8 Poseidon glided through the night at 490 knots at an altitude of 15,000 feet. It was nearly 200 miles from its initial target, the smuggling mothership, but had already locked onto its target with state-of-the-art sensor systems. Flight Commander Lieutenant Colonel Evans meticulously monitored the APY-10 radar screen. This system not only scanned the sea surface, but also could see through waves, eliminating clutter to detect unusually small objects. A faint blip appeared separating from the mothership's AIS signal, a go-fast boat. The 39-foot launch with 4 outboard engines, totaling over 1,000 horsepower, was accelerating at over 40 knots. More importantly, it was not transmitting AIS, a clear sign of illicit activity. In an instant, data from the P-8 was compressed and transmitted via the Link 16 network to the USS Thomas Hudner, operating hundreds of miles away. In the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the go-fast boat's trajectory suddenly appeared on the tactical display like a bright red paint streak on the ocean map. Everything was ready for the night hunt. 3:48 a.m., a UH-1Y Venom helicopter took off from the Hudner, activating its searchlight and laser designator onto the boat. All routes on the ocean suddenly transformed into a kill box waiting to close. 50 a.m. Very quickly from the deck of the USS Thomas Hudner, 2 R-HIBs cut through the waves, engines roaring, their reinforced plastic hulls slapping against the high swells. Naval gunners crouched behind armored shields, M240 machine guns ready to fire. The chase began. The go-fast boat made a sharp turn, kicking up white spray to evade. The Cartel unleashed dense volleys of AR-15 and RPK fire bullets whistling past the R-HIB's sides, causing water to erupt in columns. Another threw a grenade into the sea, the explosion creating a large waterspout that rocked the R-HIB. But the American sailors immediately adjusted the bow of the R-HIB, rearing up, then plunging straight towards the target. The M240 bullets are impacting near the Cartel boat's hull, forcing them to change course. But the Cartel counterattacked fiercely. One man shouldered an AR-15 with an M203 grenade launcher aiming directly at the lead R-HIB. At that tense moment, a dark shadow in the sky suddenly tore through the night. The UH-1Y Venom appeared. The sound of its rotors pounded the sea like thunder, its dazzling searchlight sweeping down, shining directly onto the Cartel boat. The smugglers instinctively shielded their eyes, frantically looking up at the light that seemed to reveal their past lives. The Venom circled its M134 minigun, opening fire tracers, raking the water just ahead of the boat's bow, cutting off their escape. A sniper on the helicopter seized the opportunity, squeezing the trigger of his M110 SAS. The bullet tore through the air, embedding directly into the shoulder of the man carrying the grenade launcher, knocking him backward, his weapon falling onto the deck, then rolling into the sea. The smuggler groaned in pain, clutching his wound. The go-fast boat frantically accelerated, throwing cocaine into the water to destroy evidence. But the all-seeing eye FLAR on the Venom had locked onto every movement, recording every bale of cargo, every oil slick. The RHIB gunners closed in a volley of 7.62mm rounds from the M240, tearing into the outboard engines. Flames erupted, the boat shook violently, its speed plummeting. In the chaotic smoke and fire, 2 RHIBs came alongside, sandwiching and bumping tightly against its hull. The Visit Board Search and Seizure Special Forces team wearing NVGs leaped across guns aimed directly at the trembling smugglers. "Hands up! Drop your weapons!" The shouting echoed over the waves. 2 cartel members barely managed to resist with a few wild shots before being immediately subdued, faces down on the deck, hands bound with zip ties. In the bright searchlights, cocaine lay scattered, weapons strewn about, and the once arrogant gang was now just a group of trembling prisoners. Was this the end? Not yet. The climax was still to come. The cartel indeed had many tricks up their sleeves. Their go-fast boat turned out to be just a decoy for something else to escape. But they had underestimated the Navy. The net had been cast wide. There was no escape for these little rats. The time is 3:53 a.m., 12 miles north of the captured go-fast boat. From the darkness, the crude shape of a narco sub gradually emerged. Its hull was painted mottled gray-green, about 65 feet long, with only its conning tower breaking the surface to reduce radar signature. But they had underestimated the Navy. The net had been cast wide. Deep beneath the surface, the USS Cheyenne, a Los Angeles-class nuclear attack submarine, had been tracking the narco sub for a long time. Its mission was not to engage in combat, but to act as the eyes and ears beneath the sea. From a safe distance, Cheyenne's ANBQQ-5 sonar system had locked onto the target, sending precise positioning information to the command center. A sonobuoy was dropped into the water by the P-8 Poseidon, marking the coordinates for surface forces. Although the radar on the USS Thomas Hudner could not detect the narco sub, thanks to sonar signals and information from the submarine, its position was clearly identified. 03:55 a.m. From the USS Thomas Hudner, another RHIB received orders to approach. On board the RHIB was a pre-prepared VBSS team. Seeing the high-speed boat approaching, the smugglers on the narco sub panicked. They hastily opened the hatch, spraying AKM submachine gun fire at the water in vain. Another threw a grenade into the sea, but the explosion only created a splash, doing nothing to stop the approaching RHIB. The RHIB closed in, circling the target. A precise shot from the gunner hit the boat's snorkel vent. Thick, black smoke billowed out, the narco sub swayed and began to lose control. Taking advantage of the chaos, the courageous VBSS team leaped aboard quickly, subduing the trembling crew. Inside, the narco sub cocaine was piled high like a mountain, tons of white blocks tightly packed in thick plastic bags. The cartel members sat slumped, weapons scattered, their eyes vacant like cornered prey. 04:45 a.m. As dawn was about to completely blanket the Caribbean Sea, the objective transformed from an assault to an aftermath for the Caribbean Sea. Alongside the USS Thomas Hudner, the damaged go-fast boat was towed forward. The fiberglass hull of the vessel was broken and the engines were burned. It was no longer safe to travel. Because a derelict hull could become a ghost, causing mishaps for cargo ships or destroying the propeller of a fishing boat, no one dared to take the risk of towing it hundreds of nautical miles through stormy seas. This was the official declaration made by the Coast Guard officer who was on board, not seaworthy. Directly after that, it was placed on the list for controlled disposal. It was time to get to work. Everything that could be salvaged was taken apart by the VBSS team, including GPS frames, gasoline tanks, and throttle linkages. Every pound of cocaine that was taken from the go-fast boat as well as the narco sub was placed in the evidence freezer of the Hudner, where it was then labeled, sealed, and preserved. In the makeshift brig, the 6 individuals suspected of being involved in the drug cartel sat in silence. Their eyes glazed over as they quietly watched the fate of the boat that had once held tens of millions of dollars, which would have enabled them to enjoy a luxury lifestyle for a small period of time. Another RHIB arrived with a tiny naval mine in its cargo load. Immediately below the waterline, divers fastened it to the hull of the vessel. The goal is not to cause a fiery explosion. Rather, it is to simply open a few strategically placed holes, which will result in the go-fast boat gradually sinking beneath the waves. The strategic, on my command, detonate the bomb. It was a brief thump. There was no smoke and there was no roar. Only the noise of the waves followed by a trail of bubbles that swirled around. Except for the sound of the Seahawk's rotors still circling overhead, the go-fast boat vanished without a trace beneath the waves, leaving only a level surface of water. In the deck of the Hudner, the remaining cocaine was put into an incinerator that was under unregulated conditions. Not all of it was brought back to shore. The majority of it was destroyed on the spot in accordance with the emergency procedures established. Ripped white sacks were thrown directly into the flames, causing thick layers of smoke to rise and then dissipate into the breeze from the ocean. In addition to the unequivocal stillness of discipline and the icy professionalism of professionalism, there was no drama. Because it is not for show when the United States Navy destroys a drug vessel or burns tons of cocaine, it is for that same reason. In addition to removing a potential danger, the goal is to clean up the ocean and convey a message. You can conceal items in containers, travel from island to island in a motorboat, or even construct submarines that can propel themselves. On the other hand, no path is sufficiently safe offshore. Not a single engine is quick enough. Moreover, the game is ended once the Navy makes its appearance. A simple arrest is not what this is. This serves as a timely reminder that at sea, the cartel does not dictate the regulations that must be followed. The USS Thomas Hudner's operation against drug traffickers in the Southern Caribbean is not an isolated incident, but a microcosm of a much larger global struggle against organized crime. This region, strategically vital due to its proximity to major drug-producing nations in South America and consumption markets in North America and Europe, remains a hotbed for maritime drug smuggling. The go-fast boats and narco-submarines described are just two examples of the ever-evolving methods cartels employ to exploit the vastness of the ocean. Beyond the Caribbean, other critical maritime routes witness similar battles. The Eastern Pacific Ocean, for instance, serves as a primary transit zone for cocaine heading to the United States, often seeing high-speed chases and interdictions mirroring those described. In the Atlantic West, African coastlines have emerged as significant transshipment points for drugs, particularly cocaine, destined for European markets, posing complex challenges for international law enforcement due to varying national capabilities and vast unpatrolled waters. The Mediterranean Sea also faces increasing pressure from drug trafficking, often intertwined with human smuggling as routes from North Africa extend into southern Europe. These global challenges highlight a continuous cat-and-mouse game between law enforcement and criminal networks. Cartels constantly innovate using everything from sophisticated false compartments and legitimate cargo to custom-built vessels that are difficult to detect. The successful interdiction serves as a powerful testament to the effectiveness of such coordinated efforts in disrupting the flow of illegal narcotics and asserting maritime security. Considering the global nature of this fight, what do you think are the most significant geopolitical or economic factors that contribute to the persistence of maritime drug trafficking in these various regions? And what international policy changes or technological advancements could tip the scales more definitively in favor of law enforcement?